Before we begin, please leave a comment, share your thoughts and let us know your lessons learned in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Many years ago, in the quaint village of Tuba, there lived a young woman named Clara. Clara was not only known for her beauty but also for her resilience. At the age of 16, she found herself at a crossroads in life. What was supposed to be the best time of her youth turned into the beginning of a long, painful journey. It was a rainy afternoon when Clara discovered that she was pregnant. A reality that shook her world to its core. The man who had once promised her love and a future together had vanished, leaving no trace behind. The only thing Clara was left with was the overwhelming weight of her pregnancy and the sense of betrayal that came with it. The man responsible for her condition had disappeared from the village just days before Clara realized her situation. It was as if he had vanished into thin air, leaving no explanation, no apology, and no way for Clara to contact him. She was left alone, with her parents too ashamed to offer any support. The village gossiped, and Clara, once a bright and hopeful young girl, now found herself an outcast in her own home. Her parents, overwhelmed with shame, decided to force her out. With nowhere else to go, Clara packed her things, leaving behind the only life she had known, and set off for Dakar, a city full of strangers, opportunity, and the chance to start over. Clara arrived in Dakar with only the clothes on her back, her heart heavy with uncertainty. But she was determined not to give up. She had to survive, not just for herself, but for the child growing inside her. She found a small, cramped apartment in the heart of the city and began looking for work. Every day, Clara faced the challenges of being a young woman in a new city, an outsider without any connections or resources. But despite the difficulties, she never lost sight of her goal: to give her child a better life. She worked tirelessly, taking on multiple jobs, from working as a seamstress to selling fruits at the local market. It was grueling work, but Clara's determination never wavered. A year later, Clara gave birth to a healthy baby boy whom she named Oliver. The moment she held him in her arms, everything changed. The pain of the past seemed to fade, replaced by an overwhelming sense of love and purpose. She knew that Oliver would be her reason for fighting, for building a life that was better than the one she had known. She had promised herself that he would never experience the pain she had endured. As Oliver grew, so did Clara's business. She began selling homemade goods, including beautiful handwoven baskets and intricate jewelry, at the bustling markets of Dakar. Her products quickly gained popularity, and before long, she had enough money to open a small shop. The hard work was paying off. Clara was no longer just a survivor, she was thriving. She had become one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the city, employing several workers and becoming a respected figure in the local community. By the time Oliver turned 10, Clara had built a small empire. Her shop was now a chain of boutiques, and her name was synonymous with quality and craftsmanship. She had everything she had ever dreamed of, except one thing. Clara had never stopped longing for the love she had once hoped for. Despite her success and wealth, the pain of losing her chance at a family weighed heavily on her heart. Clara was young, just 26, and still full of life. She had so much more to give, but her past haunted her. She was a successful businesswoman, but there was a part of her that felt incomplete. She had always dreamed of finding a partner, someone to share her life with, to create the family she had always wanted. But each time she tried to open her heart, she was met with rejection. It wasn't that Clara wasn't beautiful, she was, in fact, breathtaking. Her long dark hair, warm brown eyes, and radiant smile made her the center of attention wherever she went. She had a natural charm that drew people in, but it wasn't enough to keep the men who came into her life. Clara quickly realized that the more successful she became, the more intimidated the men around her seemed to feel. They saw her power, her wealth, and the number of people who worked for her, and it scared them. They assumed she would never respect them, that she would never need them. Many of them were afraid of being overshadowed by her success. And so, one by one, they left. But it wasn't just her success that drove men away, there was also her son, Oliver. Clara's love for him was all-encompassing, and it was clear to everyone around her that Oliver was the center of her world. To many men, this was too much to handle. They couldn't compete with a child who demanded so much of her attention, and they feared that Clara would never be able to put them first. Over the years, Clara had watched as one relationship after another crumbled. It was a painful cycle that left her heartbroken each time. She couldn't help but wonder if she would ever find a man who could love both her and her son. But as time went on, Clara began to accept that maybe her dream of a perfect family was not meant to be. She focused all of her energy on her business and her son, telling herself that this was enough. She had built a life for herself. And while it wasn't the one she had imagined, it was hers. Oliver was everything she had ever needed, and she poured all of her love and attention into raising him. But Clara still held onto a glimmer of hope. Deep down, that one day, she would meet someone who could accept her for who she was, the successful, determined woman who was also a loving mother. She dreamed of the day when she would walk down the aisle. Not just as a businesswoman, but as a woman who had found true love. That dream seemed impossible, but Clara wasn't ready to give up just yet. As the years passed, Clara's success continued to grow, and her business flourished, but with each passing year, the weight of loneliness grew heavier. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more out there for her. Something beyond the life she had built. And little did she know, fate was about to intervene in a way that would change her life forever. As Clara's life continued to unfold in Dakar, her bond with her son, Oliver, became the center of everything she did. Oliver had grown into a bright, confident young boy, and Clara poured every ounce of her love into him. Despite the challenges of being a single mother, Clara never allowed Oliver to feel the weight of their difficult past. She made sure he had everything he needed. He attended the best schools, had a circle of friends, and was surrounded by the love and care of his mother. Clara often found herself marveling at how quickly he had grown, her heart swelling with pride at the young man he was becoming. Their life together was filled with warmth and joy, but Clara couldn't help but feel a pang of loneliness. She had poured everything into building her business and raising Oliver, but she hadn't had much time for herself. She had sacrificed her own dreams of love and marriage for the sake of her son. And while she never regretted that decision, there was still a part of her that longed for more. She had built a life that was financially stable and successful, but something was always missing. She dreamed of walking down the aisle in a beautiful white gown, the way she had once envisioned. But now, it seemed like an impossible fantasy. One day, after a long day of work at her boutique, Clara sat down with Oliver on their small balcony, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, and the city's hustle and bustle seemed to fade away in the evening calm. It was during this quiet moment that Oliver, who was now 12 years old, asked a question that Clara had never anticipated. "Mom," he began hesitantly, his voice small but filled with curiosity. "Do I have a father?" The words hung in the air, and Clara's heart skipped a beat. It was the first time Oliver had asked about his father, and the question caught her completely off guard. She had always been open with him about his origins, but she had never thought he would be curious enough to ask. She felt a lump form in her throat and struggled to keep her composure. How could she explain the complexity of the situation to her young son? Clara took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside her. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" she replied softly, her voice trembling slightly. "Has someone said something to you?" Oliver simply looked at her with wide, innocent eyes, his gaze filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Clara knew that he wasn't asking out of anger or frustration, but rather out of a desire to understand his place in the world. She could see the confusion in his eyes, the longing for answers that had been left unspoken for so long. Clara took his hand in hers, her fingers gently squeezing his. "Oliver, you do have a father. You just don't know him. I'm not even sure he knows you exist. When I found out I was pregnant with you, he had already left the village. I tried to reach him, but it was too late. He had already disappeared, and I couldn't find him. My parents were disappointed and ashamed, and they kicked me out because of what had happened. So I left the village and came here to Dakar to start a new life for us." Oliver sat quietly, his small hand resting in his mother's. He didn't say anything for a long moment, but Clara could see that he was processing everything she had said. She could feel his mind working, his emotions swirling inside him. It was clear that he had been wondering about his father for some time. But now that he had the truth, it seemed to open up a world of questions he didn't know how to ask. "You know," Clara continued, trying to ease his pain with a reassuring smile, It doesn't matter whether you have a father or not. We've been happy. Just the two of us. I'm both your mother and your father. And you're my son and my partner in everything. You're never alone. And I'll always be here for you. Don't let what others say or think get to you. We've made a beautiful life together. Oliver looked up at her, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. He hugged her tightly, his arms wrapping around her like a shield. I promise, Mom, he whispered. I'll always take care of you. And I'll make sure you're happy. You don't ever have to be sad about not having a husband. You're the best. And I love you. Clara held him tightly, tears welling up in her eyes. Her heart swelled with love for this boy who had been her rock, her constant source of strength. He had grown up far too fast. But in this moment, she realized that he was exactly the kind of person she had hoped he would become, compassionate, loving, and wise beyond his years. The bond between Clara and Oliver deepened that day. Their relationship was no longer just that of a mother and son, it was a partnership. A promise to face the world together, no matter what challenges they would encounter. As the years passed, Clara poured every bit of her love into Oliver, ensuring that he never felt the absence of a father. He excelled in school, making friends easily and winning the admiration of his teachers. Clara made sure that he had everything he needed to succeed, from the best education to a safe and loving home. As Oliver entered his teenage years, Clara began to notice changes in him. He became more independent, spending more time with friends and less with her. While Clara was proud of the young man he was becoming, she couldn't help but feel a sense of emptiness. The boy who had once clung to her side was now finding his own way in the world. And Clara knew that soon he would be ready to leave the nest. It was around this time that Clara's thoughts began to wander again. She started to dream of something more, life with someone who could share the burden of her success and her heartache. She longed for companionship, for someone to stand beside her as an equal, not just as a partner in business but as a partner in life. She had always put Oliver first, and she never regretted that decision. But now, as her son grew more independent, Clara couldn't help but wonder, was it too late for her to find love? Could she still have the life she had once dreamed of, with a husband, a family, and the happiness she had longed for? She couldn't help but feel the weight of time passing. The years had been kind to her in some ways, but cruel in others. She had built an empire. But at what cost? Would she be forever alone? Or was there still a chance for her to find happiness? To find the love she had once thought was impossible? One afternoon, as Clara sat in her office, watching the sun set over the city, a thought crossed her mind. Perhaps, just perhaps, it wasn't too late after all. She had created a life for herself and her son, one that was full of love and purpose. Maybe now it was time to dream again, to open her heart and allow someone else in. But little did Clara know, the universe had a way of surprising her, and the unexpected was just around the corner. What she didn't realize was that the very man who had once disappeared from her life, leaving her broken and alone, was about to re-enter her world. And this time, things would be different. This time, Clara's dreams of love and family might finally come true. The years passed swiftly, and Oliver's journey through life continued to unfold in unexpected ways. As he entered his late teens, Clara watched with a mix of pride and bittersweet sorrow as he grew into a young man. Their lives had always been intertwined, and she had poured everything she had into his upbringing. But now, as he prepared to leave for university in St. Louis, Clara felt the emptiness of his absence more acutely than she had anticipated. The house, once filled with the laughter of her young son, felt eerily quiet. Clara found herself walking through rooms that seemed too large now, spaces that had been bustling with Oliver's energy and presence. The thought of being alone was something she had never fully prepared for. She had built her entire world around her son, and now, as he left to pursue his own dreams, Clara felt a profound sense of loss, as if a part of her was leaving with him. 1 week after Oliver's departure, Clara visited him at the university, trying to bridge the gap that had formed between them. The separation had been harder than she expected. Oliver had found his own apartment, a cozy little place near the campus. And as Clara entered, she couldn't help but notice how independent he had become. The walls, decorated with his artwork and photographs, spoke of a young man finding his place in the world. "Mom," Oliver greeted her warmly, his face lighting up when he saw her. "What's the matter? You look tired." Clara smiled, though her heart ached at the sight of her son. "I've just missed you," she admitted, pulling him into a hug. I can't help but feel strange without you at home. Oliver chuckled, sitting her down on the couch. I'm fine, Mum. Don't worry about me. Besides, I've got all my friends here. And everything is going great. It's not like you're going to be alone. You've got your business. And, well, you've always been busy. Clara nodded, though she couldn't shake the feeling of loneliness that seemed to linger in the air. It wasn't just the quiet of the house that got to her. It was the realization that she had spent so much time focusing on Oliver that she had neglected her own needs. Her own desires for companionship and love. She had always put him first. And that wasn't a decision she regretted. But now, as he began to build his own life, Clara found herself asking the question that had haunted her for years. Could she ever have the love and happiness she had always dreamed of? It was during one of these visits, as Clara sat in the kitchen of Oliver's new apartment, sipping coffee and listening to the chatter of his friends, that she received a call that would change everything. The voice on the other end was familiar, though she hadn't heard it in years. It was Joseph, the man who had once disappeared from her life. The father of Oliver, the man who had left without a trace when Clara needed him the most. Clara? Joseph's voice was hesitant, uncertain. It's me, Joseph. I know it's been a long time, but I need to talk to you. Can we meet? Clara's heart skipped a beat. The years of unanswered questions. The years of wondering what might have been, suddenly. They all came flooding back. She didn't know what to feel, anger, confusion, curiosity, or perhaps something else entirely. She had never expected this moment to come, especially not after all the time that had passed. After a long pause, Clara finally spoke, her voice shaky. Joseph, where have you been all these years? You left, and I never heard from you. I had no idea where you went or if you even cared. Joseph sighed, his voice heavy with regret. I know, I was a fool, Clara. I ran away when you needed me the most. I was young, scared, and I didn't know how to handle everything. I've regretted it every day since then. I'm sorry for what I did to you and to Oliver. I should have been there. But now, I'm back in town for a few weeks. And I'd really like to meet. If you're willing. Clara felt the emotions stir within her, hurt, confusion, but also a sense of hope. She had always wondered what would happen if Joseph came back into their lives. She had moved on, built a life without him. But hearing his voice after so many years stirred something inside her. She agreed to meet, though she wasn't sure what to expect. A few days later, they met at a quiet cafe in the city. Joseph, now in his early 40s, looked older, more weathered than she remembered. But there was something in his eyes that made her heart ache. It was the same man who had once held her hand, who had promised to build a life with her. And yet, he had disappeared without a trace. Clara, he said, sitting down across from her, his gaze softening. I've thought about you and Oliver every day. I never wanted to leave you. But I couldn't face what I had done. And so I ran. I made a mistake. And I can't undo it. But I want to make things right. Clara was silent for a moment, processing his words. She had always wondered what would happen if she saw him again. But she wasn't sure she was ready to forgive him so easily. She had built a life for herself without him. And she had raised Oliver into a strong, independent young man. Could she really let him back into their lives after all this time? I don't know what to say. Clara finally replied. You disappeared. You left us when we needed you the most. And now you want to come back. Do you think it's that simple? Joseph's expression grew pained. I know it's not simple. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. I just want to be part of Oliver's life again. And yours. If you'll let me. Clara's heart was torn. She knew Oliver deserved to have a father in his life. But she also knew how much he had been hurt by the absence of that father. Could she allow Joseph back into their lives, knowing that he could leave again? Would it be fair to Oliver to reopen old wounds? I need time to think about this, Clara said quietly. I don't know if Oliver is ready for this. And I'm not sure I am either. Joseph nodded, understanding. I'll give you all the time you need. I just want you to know that I'm here. I want to try and make up for lost time. If you'll allow me. The next few days were filled with uncertainty as Clara wrestled with her emotions. She couldn't help but think about what this reunion meant for her son. For her, and for their future. When she finally spoke to Oliver about meeting his father, she was surprised by his calm reaction. If you think it's the right thing, Mum, Oliver said, his voice steady, then I'm okay with it. I've always wondered about him. Maybe it's time we meet him. But just promise me you'll be careful. Okay? Clara nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. She had raised Oliver to be strong, independent, and open-hearted, and now, it seemed, he was teaching her the same lessons. His willingness to give Joseph a chance, to welcome him back into their lives, was a testament to the incredible young man he had become. The day came when Joseph met Oliver, and the emotions that filled the room were overwhelming. Oliver looked at his father with a mixture of curiosity and caution, while Joseph stood silently, his heart in his throat. Slowly, cautiously, they embraced, two strangers who shared a bond that neither had been able to fully understand until now. As the days passed, Clara watched the slow but steady rebuilding of their family. She had always feared that her past mistakes would keep her from having the life she had always dreamed of. But now, with Oliver's support and Joseph's return, she realized that her dream of a loving, complete family was finally becoming a reality. The journey had been long, filled with heartache and loss, but Clara now had a chance at happiness she had once thought impossible. She was no longer just a single mother, struggling to survive. She was part of a family that had been broken but was now healing. Slowly but surely, and for the first time in many years, Clara allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future filled with love, happiness, and the joy of family.